I'm back home after my travels to the ACO tournament in Crete, and I want to get stuck into the European Team Championships taking place in Batumi, Georgia at the moment. So 6 rounds have been played, 9 rounds in total. It's a really strong event. At the moment, Ukraine are leading with 11 points, Netherlands 10 points, and they will be playing in round 7. Big battle there. Giri playing very well for the Netherlands. Igor Kovalenko playing fantastically for Ukraine. He has been fighting in the Ukraine army over the past couple of years, so that's just unbelievable that he's able to play so well. But I'd like to feature a game played by another of the Ukrainian team, Ihor Samunenkov, who's 16 years old. He's been a grandmaster since he was 14, so a prodigy, one of the youngest grandmasters in the world at that time. And this is a really lovely game. And I think it's really instructive. So I hope you enjoyed this. See you in a moment. This was played in round 1 of the event. So playing for the Georgian second team, Irakli Akhvlediani from Georgia, international master, against Ihor Samunenkov, grandmaster, 16 years old. And it started out with d4. And we very quickly went into a Nimzo-Indian. So already there's imbalance in the position. Rubinstein variation for white, one of the most solid ways to meet the Nimzo. Basically, white carries on with very straightforward development. And d5, so countering in the center. And it's possible to play knight f3 or knight e2 here. But instead, white exchanges on d5. So we have this very typical pawn structure that arises from many queen's pawn openings, principally the Queen's Gambit exchange variation. But there's a difference. This bishop is behind the pawn on e3 and not outside the chain on g5 or f4. And that makes a bit of a difference. But white has a different strategy in mind to perhaps other kinds of positions. The rook comes to e8. So this is where the rook belongs in these kind of positions on the semi-open file. And only later you decide where these queenside pieces go. So bishop d2. Super solid from white. It means that sometimes you can actually play for a very quick rook c1 and knight b5. This is the idea of it. So the bishop drops back to d6 and rook c1. This is threatened, so c6. So this is a really nice setup for black. The very classical kind of positions for these pieces. And white even has to be a little bit careful about this potential Greek gift. I mean, actually, I think it could be possible straight away if white castles. I'm guessing this could already be very strong. So that's why knight g3 was played, to block out the bishop. And, well, we start to see what white has in mind. Not playing on the queen side, but actually this knight g3 move is the start of a slow build-up on the king side. And this knight develops. No need to develop the bishop on c8 yet. We don't yet know where that belongs. And knight f8. So the knight switches around to the king side. Might come out here or here. Let's see. And f3. So this is part of white's setup. So this pawn controls these crucial squares. Can't really go for e4 yet, because after these exchanges, then the d4 pawn is loose. Knight g6. But queen e1. So this is a very nice maneuver. I know the queen looks very strange on the semi-open e-file opposite the rook, but in fact it's heading to f2, so that's the point. And actually on f2, the queen is very nicely placed. So I think Akhvlediani is playing well so far. So why is it well placed? Well, it looks at d4, so it might, in some positions, be possible to advance with e4. But still a little bit vulnerable. But also it's looking at f7. And when the position opens up, the queen and the rook can be very well placed there. c5. So to counter any expansion on the king side, Samunenkov is putting some pressure here. And knight f5. Yeah, of course, this is where the knight belongs. And of course, black can eliminate that, but then white has two bishops, a long-term advantage. I mean, that's still in the balance, but I think white has definitely achieved something there. So Samunenkov just drops the bishop back to f8, and that's very secure. Just keeping hold of the g7 pawn. And g4. So you see what I mean by white has built up very steadily and very slowly on the king side, but is starting to get somewhere. And that's why I think this maneuver, queen e1 to f2, was very good. Because if you're going to advance your kingside pawns like this, you need protection. The queen needs to be on this side of the board. Now, I'm not giving away any secrets when I say that Samunenkov won this game. I'm featuring his play. But at this moment, I think white is doing very nicely. But after knight e7, now we come to a crucial position in the game. So Samunenkov is challenging that knight on f5. So here is where the game takes a big change. How would you play with white in this position? White to play. So you have a think, I'll have a drink. White to play. A crucial moment in the game. Well, Akhvlediani decides to take some material. Did you spot this? Even if you didn't like it, did you spot it? So the point is this: if bishop d7, then knight d6, and the rook is trapped. But Samunenkov anticipated this and sacrificed the exchange. In fact, as we're going to see, I think this is quite a risky continuation. It was possible just to drop the knight back. And that leaves black's pieces a little bit congested. Here, the knight gets in the way. And white is looking to push forward with g5. And as I said, I think the queen is very well placed on the king side, protecting the king and supporting this advance. It's also possible to exchange, although that clears black's lines a little bit. But again, this advance is possible. I think knight g3 would be my preferred move. But bishop b5, very tempting, but let's see what happens. So Samunenkov just gives up the exchange. And after that little flurry, you can see we've got a situation where black has a bishop and a pawn against a rook. So white has a very slight material advantage. But actually, black has tremendous compensation here. Two bishops. White's kingside doesn't look quite as healthy once, these minor pieces, the bishop and the knight, have been exchanged from the board. And I think it's basically difficult to advance these pawns now because it really will expose white's king. So I think Samunenkov would have been relieved to give up the exchange here. Now let's see what happened. Rook e1. Rook t8. Okay, the rook swings over. And this is a moment where white could have broken in the centre. Like this. And taken here. And the bishop comes back. e6, g6. Let's put it to e6. Black is very solid here. You know, it's very hard for white to make progress when black is so well set up. I think, you know, any advance of this pawn, well, already, you know, white's king is quite exposed. That can go very badly wrong for white. But it's playable for white. b3 was played instead, and rook d6 now. This is really dangerous with the rook swinging across. King h1. Okay. Good to tuck the king out of the way. Queen d7, the queen building up. Looking down here. And white played knight e2. Right. I think time for another think and drink moment. Black to play. How would you play with black in this position? Cheers. Black to play. Samunenkov lunged in with a knight. What a beautiful move. Has to be taken because of this fork. So now black is a whole rook down. But what fantastic pieces. I mean, this bishop is amazing down here. A check. The king cannot move to f1 because of queen h3 check. So knight g3 and bishop d6. So we have all black's pieces playing in the attack. Those bishops are just wonderful pieces. Bearing down here. And it's really slow motion, but white has absolutely no defense to black's steady advance. Rook f1, so puts a bit of pressure on f7. So before the queen can move, have to play f6. But again, there's absolutely no defense. These pieces simply are bystanders. Queen h3, and it's gone already. Basically, black is going to take here and give a checkmate. In fact, I mean, this is pure desperation, but white now decided to give up the queen, which is, of course, hopeless. But, okay, let's look at queen e2. No defense. Black can just give everything up on g3 and mate on g2. So it's utterly hopeless. Queen f3. That was taken, and then not a difficult move. h5. White exchanged here and thought, okay, enough is enough as h4 is coming. Beautiful position, and you know, I think this is a perfect illustration of the power of the two bishops. White is a whole rook up, but can do absolutely nothing against black's slow motion attack. But I think, you know, this was a key moment in the game when white decided to take the exchange. Instead, would have been much better just to keep the tension. And yeah, actually, I rather like white's position. I mean, there's still a very long way to go. We've only had one exchange of pawns. But it looks to me like that's the way for white to play. I'll be looking at more games from the European Team Championship. But as I said, crucial game today between the Netherlands and Ukraine. I'll report back on that one, or some other game from some other match. Anyway, thanks for watching.